Hello everyone, Juxtaposition here. Today's video will be entitled The Great Society. And of course I'm referring to two different 1960s icons. The first one being Lyndon Baines Johnson. You may remember he was the president who took over after John Kennedy had his head blown off in a port facility known as Dallas, Texas. Shot by a rifle from the triple underpass railroad tracks where there is no pedestrian walkway and there are no spectators permitted. Apparently, only military or paramilitary killers can use the triple underpass over Elm Street, which is what happened. After the limo parked as if it was going to have a picnic, driven by William Greer of the so-called Secret Service and his supervisor, Roy Kellerman, who did absolutely nothing other than to make sure that limo was parked parallel with Umbrella Man and Radio Man, who were standing on the sidewalk with a raised umbrella opened, even though it's not raining, just below Abraham Zapruder, a 33-degree Mason, filming the murder of John Kennedy. And we've never seen the film. We've never seen the film. You've seen mangled, edited depictions of what didn't happen. I'd like to see the original film, but of course, we're never going to see that. All right. So Lyndon Baines Johnson took over as president in 1963, November 22nd, on a Friday afternoon. 1963, just November 22nd. Then there was an election the next year in 1964. And Lyndon Johnson didn't have much of a act, so they created this concept called the Great Society. And Lyndon Johnson promoted his Great Society in a series of speeches. He gave a speech at the Ohio University in 1964. He later formally presented the Great Society at the University of Michigan, and this became to represent the LBJ domestic agenda moving forward. He was re-elected. Well, he wasn't elected in the first place, right? He was, through a military coup, he became president. He's beholden, of course, to Brown and Root and all the military contractors there in Texas, the great state that it ain't, Lone Star State. What is the official flower of the state of Texas? The yellow rose. Why was Jackie Kennedy given a bouquet of red roses? It's not Valentine's Day, and she's not the sweetheart of Dallas, Texas, yet she was handed a bouquet of a dozen roses, red roses, and not a single yellow rose was bestowed upon Jackie Kennedy. I think that was an FU to Jackie Kennedy, if you didn't get the message there. I think she got the message, about 25 minutes later when her husband's head got blown off onto the parked limousine, which gave Jackie Kennedy the opportunity to climb up on her hands and knees wearing a pink pencil skirt and collect the large portion of her husband's brain, the size of a softball, and climb back into the car without falling over into the gutter, which would have happened had the limousine been moving even 5 miles an hour, not to mention the 25 miles an hour that the limousine is required to maintain. And anyway, it was parked, so no harm, no foul. And the Zapruder film does not really accurately depict that. It doesn't show the limo parked. So I would say that is what we call in the trade a deception. Anyway, LBJ pioneered this concept of the Great Society, which in his vernacular included, proceeding forward with the Vietnam War. With the USS Maddox attacked by wooden fishing boats. The Maddox, perhaps named after Charlie Miles Maddox, perhaps. The Maddox, the USS Maddox, which is a destroyer, attacked by a fishing boat, and you're going to have a 10-year war involving Monsanto, Dow Chemical, Napalm, Agent Orange with Monsanto, Dow Chemical created napalm, and Brown and Root and Bechtel Corporation building and rebuilding the bridges and dams and roads. Lockheed Martin, General Dynamics, Northrop, you name it, the alphabet soup of the military in Vietnam. That's part of the Great Society. Okay, and then Medicare, a militarized Medicaid, which is 50% funded by Medicare, which is militarized financial engineering for doctors, nurses, hospital administrators, and care for the people of the Great Society. In other words, paint by numbers. In other words, doctors don't have to be doctors. As soon as the Medicare and Medicaid programs were rolled out, we had state-funded abortions, we had medical engineering, financial engineering control over doctors, nurses, hospital administrators, and that's what determined what buildings were built and why we haven't cured cancer in my lifetime. They've had cancer forever, and they've never cured it. You know, they still use the chemotherapy, the radiation, the surgery, radiation, chemo protocol, and not a damn thing has changed in my lifetime. The Older's American Act was part of the Great Society. All right, so that's one version of the Great Society. Another version of the Great Society, of course, was adopted by Grace Slick, who we all know from the Jefferson airplanes, which was really presented to us during the Summer of Love in 1967 in San Francisco, California, City by the Bay, the CIA City by the Bay. Anyway, you should know that before there was a Jefferson airplane, and which is RCA product, just like the Beatles are through EMI, just like Elvis Presley was through RCA Victor. You should know that Grace Slick was part of the Great Society band with her first husband, whose name was Jerry Slick. All right, so because Grace Barnett Wing was born October 30th, 1939, okay? Grace Wing. And she was born in a suburb of Chicago known as Highland Park. And her father, Ivan Wing, of British descent, and her mother, Virginia Wing, they were well-to-do. And her father was in the investment business. And they traveled around. They were in the investment business, I believe, in Chicago, and then Los Angeles, and then San Francisco. Her family moved to Palo Alto. That's code for Stanford University. Zip code, Sand Hill Road area. Grace Wing attended the Palo Alto Senior High School, but she apparently wasn't comfortable at a public high school, so she switched to the Castilla School, which is a private all-girls school, only 70 girls, a very prestigious private school. And upon graduating from the Castilla School, she attended Finch College in New York City from 1957 to 1958. Then she went on to the University of Miami in Coral Gables from 1958 to 59, and then she met her husband, Gerald Slick, who was an aspiring filmmaker, which means Hollywood, right? Then the couple briefly moved away from San Francisco. Grace Slick worked as a model for I. Magnon's department store. You know, that's May Brussels' family's store. May Brussels, whose name is May Magnon. That was her maiden name, May Magnon. Her father was a prestigious rabbi at the Jewish synagogue on Wilshire Boulevard in close proximity to the Ambassador Hotel. You know that May Magnon Brussels was associated with the CIA, as was her father, and she grew up in Beverly Hills. And what do you know, Grace Slick, Grace Barnett Wing, was a model for I. Magnon's, which is a CIA department store. You know, they provided the dresses for the fake Manson family. Joan Didion purchased 18 dresses for Linda Kasabian, the state witness against the Manson family. She bought 18 dresses at the Beverly Hills I. Magnon store. And what do you know? Grace Slick was a model for that store. What a friggin' coincidence that is, right? I'm not saying Grace Slick was just the Beverly Hills Magnon store. I'm sure they promoted Grace Slick for the entire chain of I. Magnon retail stores, which was, you know, a fairly upscale store for retail shopping. Anyway, in 1965-66, Grace Slick attended the Matrix nightclub, which has a capacity of about 100 people. It's in the Cow Hollow below Pacific Heights area of San Francisco. It's a very expensive area. It's near the marina, and it's near Lombard Street. Anyway, what I wanted to tell you is that she was introduced to the Jefferson Airplane Band at the Matrix, which is exactly 1 mile away from the Filmore Auditorium, which has a greater capacity of around 1,300 people, which I believe I've been to concerts there, and it seemed like it was more like triple that capacity. But anyway, legally, the Filmore West, which at that time was controlled by George Sullivan in 1965, George Sullivan had a bullet put through his head on August 2nd, 1966, just before the Summer of Love. And then the Filmore Auditorium became available for Bill Graham, who's a Jewish man from the Bronx, to promote the free concerts in Sharon Meadow, Golden Gate Park. And of course, the Filmore Auditorium was available also. Filmore Auditorium shares a wall with the Scottish Rites Masonic Temple on Geary Boulevard. That is 1849 Geary Boulevard. And the Filmore Auditorium is 1805 Geary Boulevard, on the corner of Filmore Street and Geary Boulevard. The Matrix is 1 mile north in Cow Hollow, and I've got the address somewhere. It's not important. It's a mile north. It's on Filmore Street. Anyway, what I'm trying to tell you is Grace Slick, who is known by many different fake names. Let me give you some names that were attributed to Grace Barnett Wing Slick. She went by Gracie, the Chrome Nun, the Acid Queen. She had professions as a painter, a model, and a musician, which she's retired from. She's CIA, okay? And her father was in the investment business, and she went to private schools. And her husband ended up working with Apple Computer and Silicon Valley computer companies in photography and presenting catalogs and their annual reports. And essentially what I'm trying to tell you is Grace Slick is the establishment. She's the establishment that existed before the Great Society was created. She was the part of the establishment that was opposed to Jack Kennedy's notions of getting out of Vietnam. So Grace Slick is associated with being, peace movement, anti-war, but she's sponsored by the same people that brought you the Vietnam War, and RCA, Radio Corporation of America. They brought us Jose Menendez. They brought us porn. They brought us the porn industry. That's who sponsored Grace Slick. She's in the pacification and control business. Anyway, that's what I'm trying to tell you in the here and now is we have the exact same thing with Robert Kennedy Jr. and Joe Rogan and Howard Stern or Arnold Gubinator Schwarzenegger, the steroid beauty queen from Pacific Palisades. They've always done this. They always have the leader of the fake resistance movement. That was the entire point of the Summer of Love, which was promoted hard with Dick Clark and American Bandstand. They featured Grace Slick. They interviewed her, and Dick Clark asked Grace Slick why she would like to be in Haight-Ashbury and play her music, which I don't believe she wrote. I don't believe she wrote White Rabbit. Are you crazy? Anyway, she tells Dick Clark, because the promoters allowed us to write our own material. Poppycock on that, Grace Slick. That's a bald-faced mendacity. No way did you write White Rabbit, okay? That was written, probably in the Brill Building with Carole King's songwriting team, or in Los Angeles by a songwriting team there. Some CIA lyrical team put together White Rabbit, okay? So poppycock on the whole nonsense about anti-draft, free love, free movement. Everybody needs someone to love. Wasn't that another Jefferson Airplane song? Don't you need somebody to love? Everybody's got to have somebody to love. You better find somebody to love. I don't think she wrote that song either. Anyway, she comes from the establishment of banking, the investment business. Anyway, but she wants to pretend that she's part of the Great Society because she and her husband formed a band called The Great Society, sort of as a satire to Lyndon Johnson, who she's on the same team with Lyndon Johnson, same team as Brown and Root, same team as Monsanto, the same team as Dow Chemical, the same team as Northrop, the same team as Lockheed. All right. So what else came out of the Great Society? Well, let me tell you, didn't we have a movie, a film, a Hollywood film with Stanley Kubrick entitled 2001: A Space Odyssey? Yeah, we did. And didn't in that Great Society film about the future, didn't they feature a artificial intelligence computer that went by the name of the HAL 9000, the HAL 9000? The HAL 9000 was a fictional artificial intelligence character, and it was the main antagonist in the Arthur C. Clarke's Space Odyssey series. It first appeared in the 1968 film 2001: A Space Odyssey. Let me give you some acronyms, meanings for the HAL. HAL could stand for the Heuristically Programmed Algorithmic Computer. It can also mean hardware abstraction layer. There are over 260 meanings for HAL 9000. I'm not going to go through all 9,000 of them. But the point is, it's an artificial intelligence computer. And do not we have that now? Don't we have all the Fortune 500 companies racing, tripping over each other to create all artificial intelligence? Wasn't that what Erin Valente was working on the week that she was murdered? Wasn't that the big deal that was being put together by KKR Excel? Wasn't that the big deal that involved Microsoft and Control Labs of New York and Amazon and Google Ventures, which I believe is called Alphabet? Wasn't that the big deal that was going down when Erin Valente turned up dead in October 2019? Yeah, it was. It's all about artificial intelligence. I don't know what all these children of the bankers are going to do about Harvard's MBA program or Stanford MBA program or MIT's Sloan Business School. I mean, who's going to want to go to business school when the HAL 9000 is going to make all the decisions? You can see by COVID, there are no decisions to make. Everybody agrees to wear face diapers. Everybody agrees that you should social distance. Everybody agrees that you can work from home. All the corporations agree that you should get vaccinated. So what's to discuss? What's to debate? What's to analyze? What's to program? The HAL 9000's got it handled. You don't have to have an MBA. Think of all the money that would be saved by not having to pay these knuckleheads millions of dollars a year to not make decisions. I mean, a Stanford MBA is going to be worth nothing. I mean, to tell you the truth, I think it's worth nothing now. I mean, it's just a get out of jail free card. That's all it is, right? That's all it is. You know, it's too bad Elizabeth Holmes didn't finish her program. Otherwise, it would be Henry Kissinger that's going off to prison and not Elizabeth Holmes of Stanford University. You do know that Henry Kissinger was paid $750,000 a year to babysit Elizabeth Holmes at Theranos. And his name hasn't been mentioned at all. And he was paid $750,000 a year to prevent fraud from going on, and it went on anyway. So I would blame Henry Kissinger for the Elizabeth Holmes, who was a little girl. She's just a little girl. Henry Kissinger was on the board of directors of the Rand Corporation and Gulf and Western Pictures for Paramount. He's been around the block. He's associated with political murder and assassination in Chile and Vietnam. Don't make me bring up the Diem brothers. All right, so what is the Great Society? In the here and now, it's going to be chemtrails, it's going to be nanoparticulates, it's going to be the HAL 9000 Artificial Intelligence Society, where everybody is monitored and tracked 24/7, and you'll be pulsed in feelings, emotional feelings about compliance and obedience, and you'll be told through your email system what your chores are to do for that week. That'll be the Great Society. And to just cap off today's soliloquy, let me just tell you that you should read Ted Kaczynski's what the media calls the manifesto, which was never, ever conceived as a manifesto by Theodore Kaczynski, who went to 4 years to Harvard, had to work with Timothy Leary for 3 of the 4 years, then got a PhD from University of California, Berkeley, you know, Sathergate, Sproul Plaza, the Phoebe A. Hearst Anthropology Museum, Cal Berkeley, that Cal Berkeley. Ted Kaczynski taught there. He got a PhD there. And you think he's a whack job nutcase? Oh yeah? Well then blame Berkeley. Blame Harvard. Blame Timothy Leary. If you think Ted Kaczynski is a dangerous person, you should blame the CIA. They created him. They put a much older man, 19 years older, Timothy Leary, on him. And you should know that Ted Kaczynski never, ever referred to his work as a manifesto. You know what he called it? He called it The Industrial Society and Its Future. It's 232 paragraphs concerning the industrial society and its future, which involves technology and industrialization and artificial intelligence. I personally find myself in line, congruent, and in agreement with the Ted Kaczynski papers known as the Industrial Society and Its Future. I'm in agreement with that. So I'm as wacky and as mad as a hatter as Theodore John Kaczynski is, okay? But that's me. I have my own podcast channel, so I can say these things. Anyway, that's my sermon for today. Hit the like and subscribe. Do feel free to share these videos, as I am shadow banned. Have a great day. Bye-bye.